our guest on for one segment. In the last segment, I'm going to go to Forrest, Mark, Lance, Adam, Jeff, Jonathan, Moses. But just be ready, folks, because I'm going to go to you, give you about a minute, and then that's it, because the show's almost over. And I've got this other news I'll cover tomorrow. Oil Insider and CFR member predicts Gulf evacuation of tens of millions, and now the EPA is talking about it. And I've got internal word in the Marines that they are training for it. And this is in the Washington Post, so this is getting serious. This could be Obama's excuse to nationalize oil and a lot more. So I'll be covering that tomorrow, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Central. If you don't have an AM and FM in your area, Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.com, the free podcast, it's all there online. For the rest of this segment, Dan Dix of Press for Truth.ca, great activist up there, great reporter. And, of course, Charlie Veitch of the Love Police. He is with us again. He made headlines being arrested for no reason. And here's the Star, Toronto Star. G20 law gives police sweeping powers to arrest people. They've been caught in the past hiring provocateurs, so the police have an excuse to attack crowds in Ottawa, in Toronto, and surrounding areas. And it was in the news last week that it looked like police were preparing for this again. They always call anyone who protests the bankers communist and give attention to the 10 or 15 communists. What about people that don't want to pay off these fake debts to the banks? We're not communist. In fact, we're capitalists. These bankers, I mean, is Madoff a capitalist? If I'm against Madoff or Ken Lay, am I against capitalism? So to give us a report on what happened, we got about 4 minutes with each of you. Charlie Veitch, tell us what you've witnessed there now.
Well, yeah, here we are on day 2, the final day of the actual summit. Because they made so many arrests yesterday, I heard a report of 500 people getting arrested in one go and taken out to that Guantanamo Bay-style warehouse. The streets of Toronto are eerily quiet. We walked around for about an hour today trying to find something, and all we could find was a group of about 500 to 1,000 people with about as many police. We did start a march walking through the centre of Toronto outside the old City Hall. And the police were stopping the march every 100 meters just for no reason. So there is no way to get around this city. It does feel like the not too distant future, as if this is how they are going to be treating cities once things get worse for us. So we are actually seeing much more mainstream media on the streets than actual protesters. The mainstream media are obviously allowed everywhere, but interestingly enough, we have identified a few people in plain clothes walking around the crowd who then suddenly are able to walk behind the police lines, and they look like police as well, Alex.
And we've caught them in Denver, we've caught them in Ottawa, we've caught them everywhere, attacking crowds, and that's what it looks like from the sources we've got happen with a few anarchists knocking a few things over. That was then used as a pretext to move in on the real protesters, and they've done a good job. We've gone from 20, 30,000 back in the 90s at demonstrations to a few thousand now. They used police dogs on people at the G20 last year, even old women coming out of grocery stores. This is costing $1.2 billion for 3 days, basically the budget of Toronto for a year. So we're really being taught who God is. I mean, when God comes to town, the entire city shuts down and $1 billion+ is given to the bankers. Let's talk to Dan Dix. Dan, what have you been witnessing?
Just absolute madness around here. It's completely unprecedented. I've never could have imagined I'd see this in my own city, in the city of Toronto. I'm just blown away, really. I'm just shocked at what I've been witnessing. They've arrested, like Charlie said, upwards of 500 people now who are staying down in the Toronto Film Studios that they are using as a temporary holding facility.
And Charlie was in there. He described cameras above the toilets, the way they humiliated him, that it was like something out of a science fiction movie.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Toronto used to pride itself on the fact that it has never used tear gas in any kind of a protest before. But that has recently changed. For the first time ever, tear gas has been deployed on the people of Toronto. So, you know, it's unbelievable what's happening right now. I haven't had a whole lot of sleep. We've been working hard covering this for the last 3 days, and I'm just blown away, Alex.
And cveitch.org is Charlie Veitch's excellent Love Police site. They try to go up and lovingly speak to the police, and for doing that, he was arrested. They taught him that, hey, $1.2 billion to the bankers for this security. And I mean, it's just amazing that this is going on. I mean, here are the criminals that should be arrested, but instead I saw this AP photo of Sarkozy and Cameron and Obama just all laughing it up together. Instead of going to prison like Madoff, they get even more power.
Yeah. Alex, it is a very sad state of affairs. We've seen people get pushed around here, and we saw a 12-year-old boy yesterday get hogtied with those plastic zipper things and thrown in the back of a van. And this 12-year-old boy was crying. This was just after they tear gassed the crowd. So you really don't feel that you're walking around a civilized Western world city. You really feel like you're walking around some city after an apocalypse or a nuclear attack. It's
and you said the police relished arresting you for no reason and relished the petty power and relished looking at you while you went potty.
Yes, they did. They certainly did. It wasn't just rattling the cage. The sergeant who arrested me, he had one of those U.S. Marine crew cuts and those piercing right-wing nasty eyes. And when I had to get my photograph taken, I had to hold up this board saying Veitch on it, and he was saying, I feel like I'm here with a prize fish, ha ha ha, I've caught one of these high-profile protesters, ha ha ha. So they are enjoying it.
Well, he'll enjoy having his pension fund taken. He'll enjoy being diagnosed with bone cancer at 47, or he'll be happy when his 2-year-old, dies of the vaccines he gives them and they get lowered into the ground. He'll find out what side he was really on. I think that's the important message here is I get angry at these police. I get angry at them being thugs and enjoying their petty power and arresting my cameraman. We have the footage of it at the G20 last year, or not, just a few months ago, doing nothing and beating up people and then, torturing them once they got to the military facility. But let's just remember, they're under mind control. And they've been told we're terrorists and that we're communists and all of this. They don't understand that these bankers are criminals. They probably think Madoff is good.
Yeah. And just to add, Dan and I, because Dan lives right here in downtown Toronto, right next to the security fence, we got searched 3 times in 30 minutes and had our IDs checked and radioed in. So they're definitely onto us. And it's funny, every time Dan and I walk anywhere, if it's not for his Spartan beard or my megaphone, they are keeping a very close eye on us. And it's a very scary feeling, Alex, when you cross the street and there's 30 police officers following you. And Dan and I have been filmed by police probably about 5 or 6 times today. They've got these super expensive semi-professional cameras, probably $10,000 cameras that obviously the Canadian taxpayers
Hey, there's plenty of money for the bankers, none for the slaves. But here's the issue. At the end of the day, with all of these guys, this is all a drill on total martial law. That's why they have these G20 events all over the world now every few months, costing billions wherever they go, is to practice local governments going under banker control. I mean, this is foreign bankers come in, and the city just literally attacks you, the blood bag. I mean, you're only there to supply blood to them.
Yeah, and also let's not forget as well, it's a predictive programming to train the public in urban areas to comply, to allow arbitrary searches of your bags, to go through checkpoints, to have police radio you in and have to give your details. Dan was actually very good today. A female police officer said, "Can we search your bag?" And Dan said, "No, you have no right to search my bag. I haven't broken the law." But then 5 minutes later, another police officer said, "Yeah, you have to comply or you'll both be arrested." And so we both had our bags searched 3 times.
My whole crew is actually being targeted this weekend. Anytime we go out, they see us with our cameras. They approach us and basically harass us. And no matter where we are in the city, a lot of things are going on. Nothing is really centralized in any one area. There's little pockets of activity all over Toronto.
Yeah, the G20 criminals are everywhere.
Absolutely. And, they keep coming right up to us. As soon as we walk out of my apartment, we get surrounded by a gaggle of 4 or 5 police officers.
And this is the secret police system. I mean, again, it's all about no one's allowed to protest the Madoffs that are in there robbing you blind. And the police have been internationalized. And again, I mean, we have the footage at the G20 of private security people grabbing people off the streets and snatching and grabbing them into vehicles, and old women coming out of grocery stores with bread and lettuce going, "Officer, they just let dogs go and go, 'No one in the city, no one on the street.'" And the news said, "Hey, we now attack old women with dogs." Well, hey, don't worry, cops. Your family's going to be run over by the globalists too. You get to drink out of the same devilish system as we do. Men, good job. We'll talk to you again coming up tomorrow. Popping in on the weekday show to get a report on the aftermath. Great job.